Eat more chips, don't let the salad win. That's the message in terms of nature of the food maybe that we consume in Wales.
Oh, in Wrexham town they say there's a team that likes to play association football with precision. On the terraces they call, come on Nixie, hit that ball, and we're off to the second division. Oh, we'll see the Reds with me, and you will swear that you will see the vision. Top of Division 3, led by Argon Lefty, we're off to the second division.
Hello and welcome to the Eat More Chips podcast, the official podcast, one of the most recognisable flags in the Welsh football supporters universe. In a week when a thief who swiped a golden toilet from an English palace was convicted, along with an accomplice who helped him cash in on the spoils of the 18-carat work of art insured for nearly £5 million. Michael Jones had used the fully functioning one-of-a-kind latrine as he did reconnaissance of Blenheim Palace the day before the theft and described the experience as splendid. He returned before dawn on September the 14th, 2019, with at least 2 other men armed with sledgehammers and crowbars, but obviously not TB. They smashed a window and pried the toilet from its plumbing within 5 minutes, leaving a damaging flood in their wake as they escaped in stolen vehicles. The gold toilet has never been recovered, but it is believed to have been cut up and sold. The satirical work, titled America by Italian conceptual artist Maurizio Catalan, poked fun at excessive wealth. It weighed just over £215, or 98 kilograms, and the value of the gold at the time was reported to be £2.8 million, or $3.6 million. If anyone deserves a gold bog, it's my 2 colleagues, as these 2 kings deserve a shiny throne that is just like the pair of them. Garish and full of It's Jamie and Daz.
Harsh. Feels very harsh, that one.
No
I mean,
need.
they're never funny, these leagues, but that one felt harsher than ever. You know, do you know what I mean?
Hilarious. I don't know what you're talking about. It took me all of 30 seconds to write that. Anyway, first on the wires.
It took you 30 minutes to read it, though, didn't it?
Yes, it did. Yes. First on the wires this evening, as predicted, the final Wrexham home fixture versus Charlton Athletic on Saturday, April 26th, has been selected for Sky TV, and the kickoff has now moved to 5:30 p.m. BST. Jamie, better an early evening kickoff than at lunchtime, do you think?
I think it was inevitable, wasn't it? You know, this was always going to be moved. I'm pleased that they've kept it on the Saturday, and I'm pleased that it's 5:30 rather than the 12:30. From reading a lot of the comments online on the back of this announcement, more people seem to be happy with it than not this time. I think the general consensus is it gives more of the day to drink, to get ready for the game. As I think, you know, the way things are playing out, that could be quite a significant game. So who knows? I'm just glad they've kept it on the Saturday, and not moved it to like a bloody Thursday night or something. So, yeah, like I say, it was always going to happen. It was just a case of where they were going to move it to. I feel a bit for the Charlton fans because obviously, you know, for them it's a bit of a trek, isn't it? And it's, you know, to now have to come up for 5:30 kickoff. And as we've said a million times before, with changing these games, it's the fan that suffers, isn't it? Because there will be, you know, hundreds of Charlton fans who've probably made, you know, travel and accommodation arrangements already that are now going to have to scramble around to try and find alternatives. So I feel for them a little bit, but yeah, you know, thankfully it doesn't affect me too much because whatever time the game was on that day, it's good for me. But again, I feel for people who maybe can't go now because the game's been moved. But yeah, it is what it is. It was always going to happen.
Well, we were busy celebrating our 100th last week. We missed a few bits of Wrexham news. This included Wrexham releasing their annual report on financial results for the year ending 30th of June 2024. Now, I don't want to go too deep into the figures as I can't count past 3, but the highlights in general: turnover £26.725 million, which is £16 million more than the year before, which is a growth of 155%, which is absolutely mad. It also shows that post 30th of June 2024, the club repaid the loans of £15.02 million and interest owed to the R.R. McReynolds Company LLC, which means that the club is now free of all loans towards the shareholders. Of the turnover, commercial revenue increased to £13.181 million, which is an increase of £12 million, while retail revenue increased to £4.455 million, which is an increase of £2 million. Matchday revenue was up to £5.02 million from £3.1 million the year before. Average league attendance for 23-24 was 11,229, up from 9,975, which obviously is due to the temporary COP. The geographical split was interesting. Turnover saw 52.1% generated from the rest of the world, primarily North America, with UK on 47.5% and the balance coming from Europe. The recent launch of the new Global Dragon membership category post-2024 now accounts for 25% of all current memberships, excluding season ticket holders. And in the club, the number of employees at the club increased to 225 from 199 the year before. Costs therefore rose to 11.044 million from 6.9 million in wages. The increase in number of employees includes 33 youth team and female players. Jamie, these figures smashed the League Two turnover record completely, beat every team in League One for that year as well, and even more impressive, beat 6 clubs from the Championship. Are you surprised by these figures?
Yes and no. I think the sheer numbers probably caught us all a little bit by surprise, although we expected big increases. I think to see the numbers involved was frightening. I think for me, without sort of dredging over what everyone and his dogs commented on since they came out, I think the two things for me which really sort of hit home how significant these figures were is one was what you've just said there, the fact that it was not only bigger than any turnover of any League One club, and bear in mind these financial figures from when we were a League Two club. Not only was it as bigger than any other League One club, it was bigger than the majority of the Championship as well, which is unbelievable. And I think the other thing for me, which has been really interesting, is a guy called Kieran Maguire, which I'm sure Wrexham fans will be aware of because he's appeared on. I think he's been on Rob Ryan Red a couple of times, or maybe Fearless. Forgive me, I forget which one. But he's like a financial football expert, so he has a very good understanding of clubs' finances and what all these results mean. And I follow him on X, and because obviously all these football results have been coming out, he's been commenting on them all. And I tell you something, for all the fume and all the criticism that's thrown at Wrexham about the money and the amount of money they spend and they do this and they do that and everything else, compared to a lot of other football clubs, it is being run very, very diligently. Yes, okay, there was still a loss at the end of it, but as you pointed out, you've got to remember that these figures also include fully repaying the loans owed to Rob and Ryan, which is huge to have done that within a couple of years. So, for me, that was probably the biggest takeaway from this, is it actually highlights not only commercially how impressive what we're doing is and how valuable the club and the brand is at the moment is phenomenal, but it also really highlighted to me how impressive the club, the way the club is being run is. So yeah, I mean, crazy numbers, absolutely staggering numbers.
Daz, I'm going to be very careful on how I say this. If Wrexham were to get promoted in the next 4 weeks, from this info at their time in League Two, do you think they'll have the funds ready to compete in what is an incredibly expensive league?
No. I think the kind of figures we're dealing with are next level, and as much as Wrexham have made those levels each time, I just think this is the biggest of all the leaps that they'll have done so far. And we keep saying that maybe a consolidatory year is a really good thing to help sort of stabilize the club and set themselves up. And I think you're going to need to have another round of investment that could then start putting some loans and some more debt or whatever your way potentially, because you've just seen the number of clubs that have tried to do that and not invest, and they just come straight back down. So, but if you invest too much, you stretch the club, and you only have to have see the history of some notable names as well struggle with that. So I think we have to be very, very careful with that level of ambition. Um, and I just think, as much as it makes good reading, good watching in the documentary, yes, several promotions in a row. I mean, it's great, it's fairy tale stuff, but it's not like when Swansea did it back in the day, or when other clubs have done it. It's it's a different time. I just would worry for the club stability at that point.
Well, to add to this, 4 new members have been appointed to the Wrexham Board of Directors with immediate effect. Carolyn Hutchinson is Principal Ventures for Rob McElhenney's More Better Company. Thea Joyce is a creative consultant and COO for the More Better Company. George Dewey is a producer on Ryan Reynolds' film Free Guy, as well as Welcome to Wrexham. And Ricky Engelberg is a former CMO for Vistaprint, Nike and Converse, and works for Ryan Reynolds' company Maximum Effort. This brings the board members up to 9, with Rob, Ryan, Humphrey Carr, Sean Harvey and Colleen Allen. Daz, 4 creatives, particularly in media, adding to the 3 already there of Rob, Ryan and Humphrey. Is this a good balance with the 2 outright business people of Sean and Colleen on the board?
Well, I mean, it depends what kind of thinking the board. What do you want your board to do? I mean, in most organizations, it is the business, but obviously they have an element of knowledge of the game. I don't know what level of the game knowledge that these guys will have, but they certainly know how to run a business. There'll be a certain amount of risk management, investment, all of those things that a club's going to need. I can totally understand. And the way that they've done it is, of course, through media, and so they will have that extra bit. But just because it's in entertainment and media doesn't mean they don't have that business nous. My concern would be is, like, what do they understand of the club? What do they understand of the game? What do they understand about sport? I don't know their nationalities, but I'm assuming they're all American. Did you say?
I think so, yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn. We've watched the guys learn that very quickly, and they've had to really invest themselves heavily in it. What level of time and commitment the board's going to be able to give, but it's I think fresh eyes is good. Being on a board, having done it myself, it is about challenge. It is about contradiction. Sometimes it's about challenging the things that you've always done. Why are you always doing it that way? And I think that there could be some healthy input from that. But I do think that what you don't want is every conversation starting with, why can't we do that? Well, in this country, football is, and then have to explain. And I do think that there's an element of you probably need a few more Sean's, just people who know the game and have lived it and grown up with it as well. Yeah, so useful, but I do think that maybe the balance is slightly out.
Jamie, Rob and Ryan bringing in people they obviously trust, but will the fans take to them is the question.
At this stage, I don't think the fans will be too bothered in the most respectful way. Obviously, this came out today, didn't it? It was Thursday today. This came out today. It sort of took me by surprise because, obviously I wasn't, well, not that you were ever expecting an announcement like this, but when I read it, look, I can't confess to know these 4 people other than what you've read out about them and what I've read about them. I think ultimately, Daz's point is spot on. These guys are not football people, and I say that with the greatest respect. They are not football people. And now, of a board member, of a board of 9 people, we are very thin on football-based people, if that makes sense. However, these guys have obviously been put on the board for a very specific and strategic reason, which is obviously more to do with the commercial and the off the field side of things, and continue to push that juggernaut. So again, as I've said a few times in the past when we've discussed different topics, ultimately I trust Rob and Ryan. They've earned my trust. They've earned our trust. And if they think that the input of these people is the best thing for the football club overall, then great. But obviously, I can't imagine these guys are going to have a huge amount to offer from a footballing perspective, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But like I say, look, they've obviously been put on the board for a specific reason. What that reason is, and maybe time will tell, and it'll come to fruition. I don't know, but I don't think many Wrexham fans can be overly bothered because there's nothing really to concern ourselves with at the moment. We want the marketing people and the people behind the strategy of the football club. We want them to carry on doing their thing to continue to push and grow the brand of Wrexham, to continue bringing in the crazy revenue numbers, because as we talked about before, that's going to be more and more important as we keep going up. And obviously, whoever's involved with the footballing decisions, leave that to them. But yeah, interesting if nothing else. But yeah.
Come and see the Reds with me, and you will swear that you have seen a vision. We know just how they feel when they beat the life and feel. We're off to the second division.
Devon was the destination for the first of 2 away games for the Dragons as Wrexham took on Exeter City. Parky named an unchanged side from the 1-0 win over Stockport County. Arthur Okonkwo in goal, Max Cleworth, Owen O'Connell and Lewis Brunt at the back, Ryan Longman and James McLean on the wings, Matty James, George Dobson and Ollie Rathbone in the middle, Sam Smith and Jay Rodriguez up front. For once a game where we barely looked troubled and didn't seem to get out of second gear. A first half deflected goal by Ollie Rathbone and a second penalty in 2 weeks as Jay Rodriguez was brought down in the box and confidently slotted home the spot kick to make it a fairly comfortable 2-0 to Wrexham. Jamie, to the TV viewership first before I go to the live one. You were watching obviously in Aruba or something like that. What did you make of this game?
Ooh, that was a bit below the belt. Unbelievable.
Was it Aruba? Where were you then?
Brussels.
I was nowhere. I was working, so I didn't watch the game live. I had to watch the replay of it back. So screw you. There was nothing dodgy going on in my house. Thank you very much.
Not that anyway.
But yeah, I'm glad I didn't watch it live because I would have had to then have seen you two in the front row, which was horrific. Oh, good God. Yes. Like you say, I'm just very quickly looking at my notes, and I've got to say this. I've just realised that I've written here, lineup, no surprises, subject to injuries. The team is licking itself at the moment. So yeah, the team is licking itself. Yeah, picking itself. Yeah, the lineup was like you say, it was to be predicted. I think that is pretty much our guaranteed starting lineup, subject to injuries and stuff now for the rest of the season. Like you say, it was another very routine performance. Nothing spectacular, nothing flash, nothing risky, but it was professional. It was efficient. I think you do have to say, you have to drop the little asterisks at the start of any sort of summary of the game that I think Exeter offered very little. One shot on target in the whole game. I was quite surprised that not that I expected a rip-roaring performance from them, but I was quite surprised at kind of how poor they were. But then, like we said last week, they, nothing's really to play for other than a scalp of Wrexham. But yeah, I did think they were poor. But from our perspective, you said it there yourself. You never really had to get out of second gear, and that's a good way of kind of summing it up, really. But that aside, I thought our shape and the discipline, the way that we're the way that we're playing defense from a defensive point of view, it is impressive, but against against an opposition who doesn't really offer anything in the way of an attack, it's efficient, and that's as much as you can say. We had a decent start to the game, created a good chance early on. Ryan Longman, again, very much a threat as he always is. Even if he's not necessarily in the game from start to finish, he's always a threat if he gets that ball out wide. He puts the ball in. Excuse me. Sam Smith just on the stretch misses out. Comes out to Ollie Rathbone. His shot's blocked by the keeper / defender, and then not long after that, Sam Smith does get the ball in the net, but it was flagged for offside. But the key was it was a good front foot start, which is something that we don't do very often, or not as much as I'd like to see us do, particularly away from home. So it was a positive start, and the breakthrough did come not too far into the game. I think it was 20 something minutes, 22 minutes. Good move from our perspective. It was a patient play in the defensive third. Passing it around confidently. Lewis Brunt, excuse me, pings the ball, diagonal ball again to Longman, who is a threat. Some nice little interchange between the front players. Him and Rodriguez, Sam Smith. The ball eventually lands with Ollie Rathbone, hits his long range effort on target, but it does take a big deflection and goes in past the keeper. I didn't look to see whether he actually managed to claim it or not, whether it was given as an own goal, but the fact that it was on target, he probably.
The reason why is because it was on target.
Yeah, so
on target, you can claim it. That's the reason why.
Yeah, I mean, you need bits of luck like that in the game, don't you? And it was a stroke of luck, but we were definitely the better side. And despite dominating the half generally, Exeter did have a little spell in that first half, which forced Arthur into another key save. How many key saves has he made in games recently? First it was from a corner, he punched it out, and then the follow-up shot he got up and saved. And like I say, as has been the case in some games recently, he's made some big saves without having to necessarily do an awful lot else during the game. So another important save. I think one thing that I did kind of pick up from watching this game, because I've been quite critical in recent weeks about our general level of performance is quite. It's not exactly exciting to watch, but it's effective. And despite the fact that our play generally, I thought, was still quite unimaginative in the game, there were little periods of the game where we retained the ball, we retained possession well, and we passed it around on the floor a bit more, which was nice to see, because it's not something that, like I say, we see very often. But like I say, you do have to remember what I said at the start about Exeter being a poor side. Without a high press, if they're going to let you have the ball, then obviously we will stroke it around. And then again into the second half, like you said at the start, we controlled the second half. Never really got out of second gear. You can see the stats there for yourself. Equal number of shots, but they've only had 1 on target. We've had 6 on target in the game. Obviously, we get a second goal, penalty on sort of 60 minutes. I have to be honest and say it was a soft penalty. You guys probably maybe got a better view of it than I've been able to see of it, because, as we've talked about, the replay angles are quite limited in at this level. So even when I watched the full game back and you saw a couple of highlights of it, and I've watched the highlights again since, you don't get the best of angles from it, but to me, it didn't look like a huge amount of contact. And I think, it swings and roundabouts, and maybe when we come to the Cambridge game in a minute, it maybe evens itself out. But he gets the penalty, he gets the decision. It was a much better penalty this week than it was last week, although I always think strikers have got big cojones to smash it down the middle, because obviously the goalkeeper stays put. It doesn't look good at all. But overall, like I say, it was a professional performance, that a game we controlled without really being tested. I think from a player's perspective, I think again the back three, rather than necessarily picking out individuals. I think the back three were very good, but again, without being hugely tested. Max, in particular, I thought had a very good game. As he does, he's Mr. Consistent, isn't he? He has been all season. But yeah, the back three I thought were generally solid. But ultimately a very good away performance. A game we never looked in any under any real threat. And a great start to two tricky away games to get the 3 points in that fashion. So, it was good. It was good.
Daz, you were there.
I was.
Thankfully, James Jr. was on hand in a Dayglow jacket to keep back the Devon hordes and protect us, which was nice of him. So thank you very much, Joshan. You can obviously talk about the penalty yourself because Jamie's asked the question. But what were your reflections on Town away? I like it.
I like it. I like it. And they said that quite a few times. It was good atmosphere. I mean, I'm sure you guys have mentioned several times that quite often at away games like this, their numbers are high, the capacity crowds, because they've all come to see the Wrexham, and they only came to see the Wrexham by the looks of things. So it was good atmosphere. I think the away end, it's quite nice because it's the entire one end of the ground behind the goal is completely an entire away end, so it just created a really good atmosphere. The drums were banging away, and the crowd were up for it. So it was good to be amongst the crowds, but Exeter turned up. They were up for it to begin with, and it was just, I think, again, Jamie's already said, an early silencer. To just be able to, it went quite quiet quite quickly, the home crowd, once that first goal had gone in. So I think silencing the home crowd is a classic move of and if you can do it, then it makes a hell of a difference. So I thought it was a good day out. I think just being there in person, obviously there was a bit more of a swirling wind at times, certainly as the second half went on. The high balls, they were struggling to sort of really pick them out in the air and be able to gauge it. So that had a little bit of an effect on the game as well. But no, I thought Exeter didn't really put in that much of a, they weren't the opponents that I think I was expecting more from a team that had nothing to play for and they wanted to get one over the celebrity team. They just didn't feel that they had it. So I don't think they've got the strength in depth in that sense. They had a fantastic left winger, didn't they? The number 30, who was Clewis. Yeah, Clewis had or Longman, or whoever it was on that side, had a bit of a tussle with them and struggled to begin with, but he obviously tires out and they substituted him at some point. Their centre forward, in the number 9 position, again, big, tough, big lad, but fast. I mean, really quick into closing down. So they did try a bit of a press at times, and you got to give it to the back three. They were really solid. I mean, your man Mountain, I don't think I've quite been that close to O'Connell in full flight, and he was awesome. I thought O'Connell was just none shall pass. There was a couple of moments where they got through, but the cover was there, and so I thought there was a really, really good defensive display. So it never felt. At no point did it feel like a threat. The last time I went with you, it was Bristol Rovers, and all the way through that last 20 minutes, whatever it was, half an hour, it felt like the tide was turning. This wasn't that at all. It wasn't that at all. So it was a really dominant performance. So fair play. To answer your question, was it a penalty? Oh no, I'll go to the first goal because I said to you, I said I thought it was a Rodriguez goal. I saw the header, and so the fact that it was a deflection does make sense now. I'm just thinking, why did the keeper not move, or why did he not see it? So to see that makes a lot of sense. But the penalty, I said, you asked me in the moment, was that a pen?
I asked you,
I said yes. I said yes. And then and also you can see in the footage, if you look at the highlights, there's a guy in red pointing his arm at the lino, because I said to you, look, lino thought immediately he thought it was a pen as well. So it wasn't just the ref giving it; it was the lino who absolutely waved his flag and went. And I do think it was a pen. It is soft, but it's one of those classic. It's more like a rugby tap tackle, where you literally just took the toes away, and it was enough to trip him up. And I know that sounds daft, that the smallest of touches, but when you're at speed, he just changed direction because he'd lost control. His first touch was a bit loose. It got away from him. He changed his direction. He's going for it, and the defender clips that. Whatever it is, whether it's a part of his ankle, his toe, whatever, it's enough to take him down. And he would have got to the ball. So you don't want to see it given against your team, but it was a foul, and that's the definition of a penalty.
Was James McLean stood next to the linesman when he gave the penalty? No.
No, on this occasion, no. I mean, there was a few. I I heard a lot more of him being that much closer to him this time. He's quite the he's quite the force, isn't he? Verbally, he has a lot to say about the game. So that was quite interesting. But no, definitely a pen. Definitely a pen, and I think it deserved. I mean, 2-0 was a reasonable result. It probably should have been on balance of play, maybe a little bit more, but no, 2-0, absolutely.
Did one thing I did forget to ask? Did Stevie Wonder put the flag out?
Why?
Because
it's because we got there quite late and there wasn't anywhere to put it because we couldn't put it over the advertising hoardings.
Yeah, and to be honest, there weren't that many places to choose from. Full stop.
But further along, there were Wrexham flags.
They were, and they were in the places where in between the advertising hoardings.
Okay, all right.
There was nowhere else we could put it.
We had the last spot left to sort of.
So what you're basically saying is that you should have got there earlier to get a better spot.
Well, we were in the pub.
Brilliant.
What's more important?
Okay, fair enough. That's fine. I spotted you before I spotted the flag. And then when I did see the flag, I literally could only see the top of it. And I thought, why have you put it there? But that makes sense. So, okay.
Now it's time for the away day fish and chip review.
So, Exeter away, we've been to the Clock Tower Fish and Chip Shop, and I've got Daz with me today, so we're doing a two-way, where I had a large sausage in batter and chips, and Daz had a sausage in non-batter and chips. So first of all, chips. Daz, what's your thought on the chips?
Yeah, very good. Reasonably light and fluffy. Not quite fully cooked. I think there was a little bit more, but I'm a fan of not overdoing them. So better that way than the other way. Sausage was your classic chip shop sausage. I mean, they don't make those, I guess, do they? So.
You obviously gifted your gravy to your son, as all fathers would, because Oshan was with us. Would it have benefited from some gravy, do you think?
Oh, yes. I mean, that or some ketchup. There was definitely lacking some moisture, so needed a little bit of assistance. But still very tasty. It was I think it was exactly what we needed, though, at the end of a full afternoon's fare of football. And I think it just hit the spot just about right.
So out of 5 fries for the chips?
They're probably 4. Yeah.
Generous.
Well, 3.5. We're not doing halves.
You can do halves if you want.
Then 3.5. 3.5. Yeah. I just rounded it up because that's.
Okay. And for the sausage?
I mean, it's classic fare. I do love a dirty sausage that comes straight off the shelf. So, you know me. So I think that was definitely a 4.
So 3.5 for the chips, 4 for the sausage. That's 7.5 out of 10 for the Clock Tower Fish and Chip Shop. And enjoy the win.
Yes. I mean, my first win on the road. So but still unbeaten under my watch, as you pointed out. So maybe I do have to go more often.
Definitely.
Clip that.
I can't believe you said at the start of that, Daz is here, so I'm doing a two-way.
It's almost as good as that. I love a dirty sausage.
A dirty sausage. That was
Absolutely.
A close second. But
Straight
doing
off
a
the shelf.
two-way
Straight off the shelf. Don't you worry about it.
Oh my god! Hey, bravo! An actual fish and chip review, although it's sausage and chips, but an actual fish and chip review.
I don't eat fish,
Doesn't eat fish, Mothering Sunday saw Wrexham Women take on Briton Ferry Llansawell Women for the second time in a row at the Stoke Kairas. Steve Dale made one change from the 2-2 draw the week before. Liz Craven in goal, Phoebe Davis for Karen Allen, Katie Sharp, Erin Lovett, Cara Jones, Nat Clark, Lily Jones, Amber Lightfoot, Brooke Cairns, Ava Suckley and Abby Idenden. Wrexham started well, but quickly struggled to match the physicality of Briton Ferry, with the Wrexham defence having a real day off. Briton Ferry scored first in the 27th minute before Abby Idenden, from a very tight angle, managed to bag an equaliser. But this only held for a few minutes, with a shot misjudged as going wide by Craven sneaked in at the far post. Second half, a very poor back pass by Phoebe Davis let Briton Ferry in for their third, and the game finished 3-1. Cardiff City beat TNS and secured their third league title in a row with 2 games to spare, and with this win, Briton Ferry secured the runner-up spot, leaving Wrexham and TNS to fight it out for third. Daz, a very poor display from Wrexham, uncharacteristic of late, really. What did you make of this game?
Yeah, I didn't get to watch it live, or the any sort of live coverage, because I'm not sure where I could have done that. So I've watched the highlights, and I thought, from what I could see, it did feel that you're right. It did feel like uh, an untypical performance of what we've seen in this resurgent Wrexham side. Obviously, the side that was in the first half of the season had left them a lot to let them, in terms of trying to close any gaps at the top. But that sort of series of wins, it just felt that Briton Ferry were just up for it by the looks of things. They were strong in the midfield and breaking down the passages of play, but their turnaround, it looked like they were able to get their strikers playing much quicker, getting the ball to the front much quicker than what Wrexham were doing. I mean, I think the first goal. I was going to say, originally I thought it was like because they get caught. I can't remember if it was a free kick or a corner, but basically everybody's back. Defenders are holding a line. You've got midfield in the line. You've got attackers in the line, and of course, as the ball comes in, the ball comes out to the edge of the box, and everybody runs out. And at first, I thought it might have been even Idenden, and it isn't. It's actually one of the defenders who's just slow to get back out. So everybody's doing their job apart from one, maybe even two. There was a couple of them that weren't holding their, weren't joining the line, and therefore played everybody on side. And so there was this delightful little lob back in. I mean, fair play. It was a really perfectly weighted pass. But immediately the defense has to turn. You've got the person who's playing them onside, who is then having to deal with potentially four strikers, or attacking players all going for the ball, and then a lovely little header to sort of change the direction, and no chance for the goalkeeper. So it was just really disappointing, because that's the basics. That's the fundamental sort of how you position yourself for, whether it's corners, whether it's a free kick from the wing. So that's got to be disappointing. But they did well to sort of get back into the game. A fantastic passage of play where the ball's coming in from the right. I think it's Jones. I think Cara Jones. I think, and again, it's obviously Idenden who's gets basically he pounces on the ball. It does go very, very wide at the goal at one point, and she just drills it straight across and finds the gap between goalkeeper and post, and it's a really good finish. I mean, there are very few people who can comfortably take that shot, but the fact that she took that on, the goalkeeper fluffs it a little bit, but it lands at Iden's feet, but still has the confidence to take the shot on. I thought that just shows you a player in confidence, high in confidence, and yes, it could have. I think Suckley was in the middle there somewhere as well. It could have been played to Suckley, so there was options, and you just thought, right, this is Wrexham now playing a bit better. And then somehow there's just a handful of mistakes that are just building up. And you just kind of think, like, what's changed? I don't know why the team are not playing as cohesively as they and the second goal. Oh yeah, so the second Briton Ferry goal is the one where I am going to have to say something about the goalkeeping. You knew it was coming this way.
Get your big cards out. Here it comes.
Absolutely. I mean, you'll have seen it. But So Briton Ferry turn it around in midfield, and then they're on the counter. Not really a counter in the sense that there's as many defenders to so they're 3-on-3 or 3-on-4 even. It might be even in favour of Wrexham, but the fact that their right winger gets the ball, a lot of pace, and takes it to the corner of the Wrexham area, and then just I wouldn't even say fizzes it, just strikes it towards the opposite post, and it's a really well placed shot, but it's right in the corner, and you can go, well, that's great. That's a great finish. The goalkeeper didn't, but the goalkeeper kind of watches it go past. It kind of just rolls past, and for my money, the body language suggests thinks it's going wide.
Yep.
She just thinks it's going wide, and it sneaks in. So it's the softest of, it's not a great finish in the sense that it's not fizzed, it's not pinged right in. It's just well struck firmly, and you just think, yeah, anybody running in at that maybe could have tapped it in, or all sorts of things. But I don't understand the body language. It was just all wrong, and could have stepped out. Could have easily have died for it. So that misjudgment that they came to regret that now, and so that's disappointing. And then the third goal was also not necessarily you know a crowning glory of the moment of the Wrexham defence. So a loose back pass that echoes a little bit of last week's Joe Allen's, where he plays it back. Well, in this case, it's a loose pass from Davis, I think, and Davis, and it's either not aimed well enough so it goes to her fellow defender, or it's not strong enough to get all the way back to the goalkeeper, because it's that vague a pass. I don't know which one she was trying to do. It doesn't reach the goalkeeper, and the goalkeeper, fair play, rushes out, usually quite good one-on-one in those situations. But the striker does this lovely shoulder drop, takes it round, and not it was an open goal, but I can't remember who came back to try and block it, but was too late by that point.
Katie Sharp tried, but
Katie Sharp, yeah, and I think it might have been Sharp that was at the other end causing everybody to be onside as well. So she tried to make up for that, but it's just the finish was just too clinical, too quick. But the Davis's pass is just so loose, and he just and it don't stand a chance then. If you've got a striker in form, goalkeeper does their best, really try to rush out, but there's so much room, so much space, so much time. And that was what, about 50 something odd minutes into the game, so it's still half an hour to go. And yes, there were some moments, but equally there was another moment where actually there was another sort of couple of good shot stops. So as a goalkeeping, uh, um, in terms of, it's not all bad. I'm not going to say that as goalkeeping, Craven it was just the fact that when the mistakes happen, they did cost goals, and I think that's what's going to be really, really, really frustrating for them, because it has now decided that they cannot catch the second place now. That's just given Briton Ferry the gap they need, with only a couple of games left to go, and it was in their hands to sort of race. The race could have been on for to the end of the season. That's it now. And that's got to be a shame. That's got to be a shame, because they have done so well with their recent form and beginning to, show the potential why we thought they would do better in the league from the beginning. So yeah, poor start, set them up badly. They've made up the ground, and then to have fallen at this hurdle, it's not even the last hurdle. I still think there was probably a couple of more good games in them to get through to the end of the season that they could have pushed them. To have given the advantage away in such disappointing way, because there was poor goals. Those two goals were poor. In fact, all three were poor, really. Basics in defense, back passes, goalkeeper should have been more alert. It's just such a disappointing way to end the season, really, because that's it now. Season's over.
Yep. On to Tuesday night, as Wrexham travelled across the UK to take on Cambridge United away. Phil Parkinson again named an unchanged side from the Exeter win earlier in the week. Wrexham started well, with George Dobson hitting a 20-yard shot to nestle inside the far post to take the lead of the game. But we fell back into the nasty habit of letting them dominate play and invite pressure, which paid off for them at the end of the first half as the ball was scrambled into Wrexham's net. Second half, and almost immediately, Cambridge were awarded a penalty, as Brunt was judged to have brought down Ryan Loft in the area. Cambridge scored to take the lead. A beautiful Longman cross met the head of Sam Smith for 2-2. Parky made some changes, with Elliot Lee missing an absolute sitter and a disallowed goal for Wrexham right at the very end, but the game finished 2-2. Wrexham is still second in the table with 78 points, 3 points ahead of Wycombe, who have a game in hand. Jamie, a frustrating and disappointing night, to say the least. What did you make of this game?
Yeah, that's a good way of summarising it. It was interesting, really, because I expected, as this game unfolded, I expected the performances or the games to play out to be opposite the Exeter-Cambridge games. I thought the Exeter one would have been the one that would have been the more competitive one, and it turned out to be this one. I mean, from a neutral perspective, it would have been a really good game to watch. From a Wrexham perspective, I needed a stress ball. It was difficult, it was difficult, but it was an entertaining game. Like with the Exeter game, a fast, positive start, which is something that I've been critical of us this season, and I know others have as well. So it was nice to see us make a positive, fast start. Within 90 seconds, I think it was, Sam Smith has a great shot from the edge of the box, which is saved by their keeper. And it was only, a minute later that we actually take the lead. I think from Cambridge's point of view, you'd be disappointed to have conceded that goal, because to allow George Dobson to control it like he did and have the time to get his shot off like he did, you'd be disappointed with. But from our perspective, brilliant bit of play from Dobson, lovely control and really, really nice touch and an accurate strike. It wasn't. I wouldn't call it a worldie or anything like that. It was just a very well struck, precise shot that found the bottom corner, and we couldn't have asked for a better start. But then, like you say, frustratingly, we did our usual thing then of sitting back, and I think even Parky alluded to this in his post-match interview. He kind of said the same thing. I mean, we were almost overconfident at times. I'm all for playing the ball around and passing it around and stuff, but there was almost an air of overconfidence. And, the olays from the crowd after 10 minutes didn't sit particularly well with me, I'll be honest. So in a bizarre way, that I think that, that has potentially fed through to the players as well, because if, it was coming across, they were a little bit overconfident, and I think it was all the ingredients of like I say, just a little bit a bit lethargic, really. But as with the Exeter game, I did think there were periods in that first half where we played some really nice football. Nice to see us getting it down, passing it around, moving the ball around from side to side, and progressively trying to move it forward, and not just aimless side hoof passing that we see a lot of. Or we've seen a lot of this season. So, credit where credit's due. There had been portions of this game and the Exeter game where we were getting the ball down a little bit. And although we had the better of the first half, I mean, we had 54% possession in the first half. I mean, you can see on the stats there it was 55 from the whole game. I mean, you'd struggle to find a Wrexham game this season where we've had the most possession, because generally we don't. So, although we had the majority of the ball, Cambridge did have good spells in that first half, and they sure as hell made sure we knew that they were still there. They had a couple of really decent chances. Again, you look at those stats, and they've had more shots overall than us in the game. And in that first half, I think it was nine shots and 3 on target. So in the first half, they certainly made sure we knew they were there. Obviously, the huge disappointment was to concede the equaliser, 5 minutes before half time. And you have to say, from our perspective, it was a shit goal to concede. I'm not sure what was worse, whether it was the defending or whether it was the fact that the 1990s retro right back who was the one that scored it. I've not seen a player tuck his shirt into his shorts since about 1992. I'll be honest. So I'm not sure what was more disappointing, but yeah, it was bad from our perspective. You know, James McLean gets drawn out of position, and as a result, leaves a big gap on that left-hand side. The ball finds its way out there. You know, we're scrambling then to fill that space. The ball comes in. I don't know what happens with Owen O'Connell. He gets drawn to that near post. There was no threat at the near post, but by doing that, it just leaves a big gap in between him and Max. And you know, Timu Lee Dixon is there to take his chance.
I mean, Arthur did try, didn't he? He did try, but
he did. I mean, it was a crap header from him, because if you watch it, he misses the target. If it doesn't hit Max, it probably goes wide. But obviously his header hits Max, which then forces it. To be fair, like you say, a really good save from Arthur. You have to feel a bit from Arthur. But I think I don't know if it came back from Arthur or whether he tipped it onto the post, but it obviously comes back out and back to him, and you know, he slots it in. Really, like I say, you're going to concede goals, of course. I mean, I know we talked last week about the amount of clean sheets we've kept. We're going to concede goals. It's going to happen, but it's disappointing when you concede a goal like that, because it's defensively it's poor, and from a team that's, you know, sitting second, third in the league, you'd expect better, and particularly given how well we've defended in a lot of games this season. But you know, it is what it is, and it was, you know, 1-1 at half time. Again, I said this a couple of weeks ago. You hope then come out of the second half. You know, Parky's, I don't think he would necessarily have had to have gone in with 2 feet on them, but you know, so a few stern words and trying to raise the levels a little bit to come out, because they were there for the taking. You know, we were a better team than them if we wanted to be, and it start our second half couldn't have gone any worse. You know, to concede a penalty 60 seconds into that second half, and obviously we discussed the Exeter one. When I made my notes, I put maybe it was a bit of ref decision karma, that because I wasn't sure about the one against Exeter that we got, so maybe this was, because I wasn't sure about this one either. I didn't think this was a hugely convincing penalty. Not a lot of contact, but as we're used to seeing in the modern game, you know, strikers in particular are very clever, aren't they? They're very clever in playing for fouls, and I think that's what it looked like to me with this one. It was more a case of the striker playing for the foul and obviously getting it. No offense, but I never thought Arthur was going to save it. And to be honest with you, even if he had gone the right way, it was a cracking penalty that I don't think he'd have saved that, even if it had gone the right way. But really disappointing to go 2-1 down so early on in that second half. But I suppose at least the positive is that it is very early on, so you've got the majority of the half to try and rectify it. But to be honest with you, I felt we struggled a little bit initially once we went 2-1 down. I think, you know, their tails were up a little bit. We struggled to cope, and we were lucky that they had a really good chance after they scored that second. We were lucky not to concede a third, to be honest with you. But, you know, thankfully we did regain our composure, and we got back into the game quite early in that second half, or still with a good amount of the second half to go. Again, great work from Ryan Longman down the right-hand side. He's such a joy to watch. You know, I think we're very blessed to have him and Barney as options on down that right-hand side. But, you know, Ryan Longman's just, to me, is getting better and better. And although he hadn't been massively in the game, he's got that moment in him. And he puts a lovely ball in. And to be fair, it was a cracking header by Sam Smith to put it back across the goal the way it came. Keeper had no chance. And great, we were back in the game. And to be honest, you know, we started to turn the screw then. From about 60 minutes, we started to turn the screw. And as the game went on, we created a lot of good chances. You know, Max had a good shot from outside the box, which was saved by the keeper. Sam Smith had a low shot, saved by the keeper. And then the follow-up from Ollie Rathbone was blocked. It felt like it was coming. You know, the screw was being turned, and it felt like the winner was going to come. obviously Parky brings Fletcher on after 70 minutes. Personally, I would have liked to have seen the changes a little bit earlier because I think it would have benefited us. But he's like we know he doesn't make changes earlier than sort of seemingly like sort of 65 minutes. But then, as we get towards the end of the game, you're thinking, okay, it maybe isn't going to be our night. And then the moment of the game happened, which was a certain Elliot Lee giving me nightmares. Look, it would be unfair of me. It would be unfair of anybody to be ultra critical of Elliot Lee for missing that chance. I'm pretty sure none of us would have scored it. But for a player of his quality, even though he's a player not necessarily in great form, even though he's not necessarily had the best of seasons, for a player of his quality, it was a really poor miss. And he'll know that. He'll be more disappointed than anyone. But the more I watched it back, the more I just makes me want to cry every time I see it. Because I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it. I hope to God I don't have to look back at that moment and think, that was it. Because that could have made, to have got that and to have won that game 3-2, given what happened with Wycombe, that could have been huge. But look, it wasn't meant to be, and I'm sure there'll be twists and turns to come. He'll be really disappointed. And then obviously the final talking point of the game was that disallowed goal, which I'm assuming he disallowed it because it went out and back in again.
Apparently so, yeah.
Yeah,
it was either the quadrant. It wasn't in the quadrant, which obviously the liner would have pointed that out before he'd taken the kick. But apparently in the first meter, it went out as it was going. It went out and come back in again, and that's where they flagged it.
Again, with the limited replay angles that you get, it was impossible to see. I know Parky commented on it how the linesman could be sure it went out and back in again. It's quite a feat that when you think about it, to go out and come back in. The whole of the ball is quite a feat, that. So I don't know, but unfortunate because again it ends up in the back of the net, and I'm thinking happy days we've stolen it, but no, it wasn't to be. Look, Wycombe ended up drawing as well. I don't know how. I don't know if you saw the stats from that game. 32 shots to 2.
Thank you, Shrewsbury. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the six-fingered carrot crunchers.
Extra red diesel for your tractors this week. Well done.
Yeah, but thankfully, the us dropping points in a game that I think we probably should have won. It hasn't hurt us too much. I think ultimately 4 points from those 2 away games, back to back, long away games within 3 days of each other. I think we've got to be happy with that. Thankfully, we got away with it with Wycombe dropping points as well. So ultimately, it's as you were. But I can't lie. I was a bit disappointed because I felt it was a missed opportunity. But look, it's not the end of the world, and even though we've only got 6 games to go, there's still going to be twists in this for sure. But look, we've said it a couple of times, haven't we? If you can't win, don't lose, and we didn't lose, so that's the most important thing.
Daz, before I ask you your actual question, penalty, yes or no? I've got to ask you.
I haven't seen it.
Right, fine. So we'll take it as yes then, if that's the case.
I don't think so. I did watch the highlights. I just don't remember paying attention to whether or not it was. I just saw that it was a penalty. No, I did. I just because it's a good finish, isn't it? I remember the penalty. I don't remember the penalty reason. I just watched the highlights. It all happened.
Exactly. That's fair enough.
But the last goal, what a header! I'm sorry, those neck muscles.
Oh, Sam Smith, yes.
So the Sam Smith, those neck muscles, that's an incredible header, worthy of that result.
Well, as Jamie just said, that's 4 points from the last 2 games with 6 games to go. Some Wrexham fans online were saying that we should have beaten both Exeter and Cambridge as they were lower down the league, and this draw has really jeopardised Wrexham's automatic promotion chances. Do they have a point?
No,
no. I'm not asking you, Jamie. I was asking Daz.
Oh, you didn't say, did you? I thought it was an open question.
I said
you
no,
didn't.
Daz. I said
you didn't. Listen, you senile old git. Go back and listen to it. You did not say a name. You just asked an open question.
Right, Daz.
No, I don't think so. I think what, as Jamie's alluded, is that it's a missed opportunity to, but when you leave that game, you think, we've missed an opportunity here to hear that your opponents have done the same thing. That's your saving grace. So nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. It's still within your own hands to close the gap. I think yes, and any opportunity to do better than your nearest your nearest rival. Of course, you want to make the most of it, but not losing was the key thing. I don't think it's dented. I think you just it's still putting the pressure on Wickham. Wickham's still got to do it.
Jamie, then have we jeopardised our position, our automatic promotion?
Oh, you want my input now, do you? You want my answer now, do you?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay. You sure? Sure.
It's vital. It's vital to this question that I get your input.
No, I don't. I don't understand the meltdown. You can't realistically think and expect we are going to win every game. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Like I just said, I was a bit disappointed, only purely because I felt we could have and should have won that Cambridge game. We'd already done the Exeter game. I felt we could have and should have won that Cambridge game. I thought we'd done more than enough with the chances we created. But thankfully, we've dropped points, but we've gotten away with it because Wickham couldn't capitalise at Shrewsbury. There's 6 games to go. Still 6 games to go, and there will undoubtedly be twists in this yet. This is not a. If we lose, God forbid, but if we lost to Burton, it wouldn't be the end of it until mathematically it can't be done. There are going to be twists and turns. We've got to try and just chill out a little bit because the like you say, some of the kind of the heads falling off after that Cambridge draw was crazy, but it's the norm, isn't it? We've seen from some quarters. I think Red Passion is the one, isn't it? That's where the fume seems to stem. I try to actively avoid it, to be honest with you. But look, it's going to happen. There's going to be twists and turns, even still with 6 games to go.
Now, the Eat More Chips podcast, it's time for today's newspaper, tomorrow's chip paper, where we catch up on Cymru and Wrexham football news. First up, with us not covering last week's news, a few things have happened. The Academy had 2 games in the EFL Youth Alliance. First, they took on Stockport County Youth at Colliers Park and drew 2-2, with a gutting Stockport equaliser in the 92nd minute. Wrexham's goals were scored by Harry Dean and Cian Nolan. A week later, they played Hartlepool United Youth away and won 3-0, with a hat-trick from Rio Owen. Wrexham are still second in the league with 3 points to go, 1 point behind Bolton Wanderers, who have 3 games in hand, but 9 points ahead of Rotherham United in third, who also have 3 games in hand. Wrexham Women under-19s played Newtown Girls under-19s twice. They played away and won 8-0. Goals from Bella Riley, India Bow Evans, Seren Cashin, Anna Owen, Maisie Johnson, and a hat-trick from Grace Morris. 4 days later, they played at home and won 2-0, goals from Tilly Ashworth and Sienna Parry. Wrexham sit top of the league, 5 points ahead of TNS, with 2 games to go. Wrexham and TNS meet on Friday, and if Wrexham win or draw, they win the title. If they lose, then it'll go to the last game versus Nomads. While we were partying, the reserves took on Mansfield Reserves in the Central League at Colliers Park. The team was stacked with first-team players. Callum Burton in goal, Harry Dean, Dan Scarr, George Evans, Harry Ashfield, Josh Adam, Mofal, Paul Mullin and Jacob Mendy all started. Ollie Palmer and Jack Marriott were on the bench and played 45 minutes. Wrexham Reserves won 4-0. Goals from Max Purvis, Dan Scarr, Ollie Palmer and Paul Mullin. Wrexham Reserves are currently 8th in the league with 1 game to go versus Chesterfield Reserves. Whew, Jamie, a lot to digest there. First of all, the men's academy side closing in on that second spot.
Yeah, they, like you said, they're, it's been a solid season, hasn't it? With some familiar or some names becoming familiar for standout performances. Like you say, the Stockport game was disappointing to concede an equaliser very late on. but they have done far better this season. They've had far better games this season than they've had poor games, and I think Bolton just seem to be on another level this season, which is fine. That's cool. But if we can cement that second place, I think that will be a fantastic season for the lads and for all involved, really. So yeah, I'm confident they can get the job. They can get the job done. They've like I say, they've had some really quality results this season, and particularly the last couple of months.
Daz, the women's under-19s really hotting up. Wrexham have the title in their hands, but what kind of a game is that going to be against TNS?
Oh, I think there's a good old, reasonably local rivalry there. Teams performing well, but I think, like you said, the form that they've been showing recently, it's hotting up nicely. I just think the advantage is in Wrexham's hands. They've got they've been showing that they've got the capacity to do well in these games, and with that cushion of a few points in the league as well. I just think it's for them to lose more than anything, but I think TNS will be a worthy foe in this situation. But it's not going to be an easy game. It's not going to be straightforward. But I think Wrexham have got everything they need to win that game. No worries.
Jamie, a lot's been talked actually about the reserves game because that happened now week before last. There isn't the reserves game coming up, I think, this week at some point, or possibly next week, early next week. I mean, looking at those reserves, there were some seriously big name players in there. I mean, were you surprised to see so many of the first team playing in that starting 11 and on the bench?
Maybe. It's unusual to see. It's unusual to see so many, like you would say, peripheral first team squad players play in a reserve game at the same time. Usually when there's a reserve game, there's maybe one or two, but to see so many names on that team sheet was a bit of a surprise. I feel sorry for the Mansfield reserves because I believe that was a majority a team of kids. So to see this Wrexham team, it must have been a little bit daunting. But look, we've talked about our squad depth at length at different points this season, and there is no substitute. You can train as much as you want, but there is no substitute to playing games. And even how competitive these games are going to be are probably they're not going to be hugely competitive. So it's important, I think, particularly at this stage of the season, because take Mullin and Palmer for example. I know there's been this huge clamour in recent weeks about having them back involved, and that debate's been done to death. But God forbid, but if something happened, we had a serious problem over 2 games where we got injuries to Fletcher and Rodriguez and something like that. Before you know it, they'd be needed to be back involved in first team action. So the fact that they've been able to get some competitive minutes in it can only be a good thing. So on those grounds, I wasn't surprised to see such a strong reserve team. Ultimately they've done what they needed to do. With Mullin and Palmer, they've both scored a goal. I'm sure it must be hurting them too. I would think having to play reserve games, I think will be grating on them. But it just goes to show, doesn't it, that they're still being professional. They're training well. They're being asked to play for reserves, and they're turning out, and they're doing what they can, and they've done their job, which is score a goal. So a little bit surprised, but it makes sense to me because it's important that you in case you need to call any of these players in the run-in.
Cymru Women's under-19s are currently hosting round 2 League A qualifiers of the UEFA Euros, with the group winners qualifying for the final tournament in Poland this summer. Cymru played France on Wednesday at Stebenheath Park, Llanelli. In a very tight and competitive game, Cymru lost 1-0. Cymru play the Republic of Ireland next Saturday, the 5th of April at 1 p.m. BST, and then Serbia on Tuesday, the 8th of April at 3 p.m. BST. Daz, although they lost, Cymru really played well versus a very, very strong France side.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we can imagine that the French team, the women's game has been really strong in France for decades. The pinnacle of European football is Lyon, for many years, and so they've got heritage. But I think that's just shown the difference that Cymru have shown in the last couple of years. Really, they've turned a huge, significant turning point in the women's game, and it's just great to be able to see that reflecting in the younger age groups as well, which bodes well. And we've seen so many of the under-19s go straight into the senior squad. I mean, some of them some of them already play in the senior squad, and so they wouldn't have played this week, unfortunately, because they'll be with the senior camp. So in many ways, they achieved the result against France with a much weaker team than we actually have. And I don't know if that's true of France. Maybe they have more strength and depth in the senior squad there. So I think that's a really positive, sign that with that much depth that we were able to hold France to that result and still know that we've got better players at that age group. It's really positive for Cymru looking forward.
Wrexham AFC women's goalkeeper Del Morgan has announced her intention to retire from playing at the end of the 2024-25 season, according to the Wrexham AFC website. Morgan, who also works full-time as a goalkeeping coach with Liverpool Women, has made the decision to step away from playing in order to focus fully on her coaching career. Jamie Dell has been less involved this season between the posts for Wrexham, so not really a surprise that she's retiring.
No, I did see on the end of the statement it said, due to constant criticism from Daz James, I'm hanging up my gloves. No, like you say, it's not a surprise, is it? Because I think was it at the start of this season? Was it the start of last season where there was like an announcement? Not an announcement. There was like some information put out there about the fact that she was going to miss. I think it was last season. She was going to miss some games because of her commitments with her coaching role at Liverpool, isn't it? She's obviously highly thought of there. So, yeah, this makes sense. I mean, like you say, she's had very little playing time this season anyway. But fair play to see her getting the kind of the response she got. It was posted on the main club socials, not just the women's channels. I know there were some comments certainly from Rob. I'm pretty sure it would have been something from Ryan, and obviously a lot of other players, female and male players as well, quite rightly acknowledging, what contribution she's made in the last few years to Wrexham's, where they find themselves now, particularly that promotion season. She was phenomenal, wasn't she? So, all the best to her. Obviously, I don't know what her long-term plans are, whether this is just to take up a full-time position, this Liverpool role is a full-time position. Who knows? Maybe there's something, back at Wrexham in the future. That'd be good. But whatever she chooses to do, thank you for all the kind of contribution and all the best for whatever you choose to do going forward.
Wipe down the counters and scrape the fat off the floors. It's time for the chip shop. Daz and Jamie are happy to help, unless there's anything that actually needs doing. So first in the fryer tonight, it's Denmark Women. Cymru Women are back in Nations League A action as they have their first meeting versus Denmark Women at the Cardiff City Stadium on Friday the 4th of April at 7:15 p.m. kickoff BST. Currently ranked 12th in the world, Denmark are one of the pioneers of international women's football, having competed in the inaugural 1971 Women's World Cup. They have reached 5 World Cups, with the last being in 2023, and 10 UEFA Euros, the last being in 2022. Denmark are currently second in League A Group 4, having lost at home to Sweden, but beat Italy away. Cymru are bottom by losing away to Italy, but getting a fantastic 1-0 draw at home to Sweden. Cymru and Denmark last met in a friendly in 2021, where Cymru drew, the goal that day scored by Jess Fishlock. And the chips are done. Daz, Cymru have started well, but the tough games don't stop. With Cymru having only 1 point, how important is it that they get something from this game at home?
I mean, obviously, every point, it's going to be a bonus. I mean, this just shows the level of the league that they're in at the moment. I mean, I think we did well against Sweden to get that result. I'm not entirely sure that they can measure themselves against. I mean, Sweden are a quality side. We know that, and they did well to stay in the game, but it was under the cosh for long periods of time. So, so for Sweden to have beaten Denmark in the earlier game, that suggests then, well, we can match Denmark. But I watched the highlights of the Denmark game against Italy, just because I thought, how good is this Denmark side? They were brilliant. And there's the second goal. I think it's almost like a Halkanu moment where she flicks it over her head, turns around, and slots it past the keeper. I mean, it's overhead rather than nutmegging or a Cruyff turn, but it's still one individual goal of brilliance. But there's some quality players they've got in Denmark, and Italy are no mugs. Their goalkeeper kept them at bay, and so it just shows how tough a group this is going to be. But that's what you get being at the top table. So getting a result, it's of course it's crucial to stay in the running, to be meaningful in this group rather than just being the also-rans. But there's no way given, and all three of these opponents in this group are going to be challenges. It's just absolutely such a challenging group to be in. I'm optimistic we can compete. Whether or not we've got enough to get results, it's a big ask. It's a big ask, I have to be honest.
Jamie, Rachel Rowe is back in a very experienced side with the positive result versus Sweden at home, as Dad said. Do you think Cymru can push Denmark, as Denmark did manage to lose to Sweden?
Yeah, I think you've got to be careful. You've got to be careful just looking at the results, because, like you say, you pick out that Sweden game and you think, oh, okay, well, they've lost to Sweden. We did well against Sweden, so that maybe means we can compete. But if you look at their ranking, that I can't claim to know an awful lot about the Danish women's team. I'll be honest. Until about 2 minutes ago, I didn't even know we were playing this game, if I'm honest. But no,
nothing but honest, my brother, is he? Let's be honest, he's nothing but honest.
Hey, what can I say? But look, my encyclopedic football knowledge will serve me well here.
And your bullshit.
No, and the fact that I've got some statistics on a screen
Google.
Here.
He's binged it.
Bing? How's Bing? Yeah, no, I think you've got to be really careful just looking at results. At the end of the day, Denmark are, what are they? What do you say? 12th in the world.
12th, yeah.
12th in the world. Like Dad says, to beat an Italian team away in Italy 3-1 is no mean feat. I haven't seen the highlights of that, so I'll very much bow to what Dad has seen on that. But by the sounds of it, they were impressive in that game. If you take the Sweden defeat out of it and then look at their results, over like a longer period of time, they have far better. They have more positive results than they have negative ones. So, Daz is spot on. This is the price you pay for being at the top table, isn't it? And there's not going to be any easy games in this league. But this is what we wanted. This is what they wanted. They wanted to be at the top. In this top group, they wanted to test themselves against the best, and that's what they're going to get. So there's not going to be any easy games in this group at all, and I don't expect this one to be easy at all.
So time for the salt, vinegar and sauce koch. Daz, what's your score prediction for Cymru Women versus Denmark Women?
Yeah. What is my score? No, I'm hesitant.
Close, boys and girls. It's getting very close in that league now.
It is. It is.
Yeah, and I did some experimentation, because obviously we also get extra points for our predictions in the league. And I put in as it is at the moment, and Jamie was 2 points behind you, Daz. That's how close it's getting.
Well, fair enough. Fair enough. I thought I had my results written down, and then I asked my daughter who was going to the game.
Okay.
And I said, "What do you think is the results?" She's going to say, "I think Wales are going to be really defensive. I think they're going to be really organised. I think it's going to be about possession and keeping it away from Denmark." So she's predicting a draw, and I just thought,
Ooh.
okay. So do I trust that, or do I go with what I wrote, which was something slightly different? So I'm going to go for a hybrid, and I'm going to go for Denmark win, but they win 2-1.
Jamie, what's your score prediction for Cymru Women versus Denmark Women?
Let me just check my notes. To be fair, I'm gonna with the greatest respect, I'm gonna say a Denmark win as well. I'm gonna go for a 3-1. I think they'll beat us the same as they beat Italy 3-1 to Denmark.
And I'm predicting Cymru Women 0, Denmark Women 2. Although Cymru have done incredibly well, starting straight in against a really tough and well-established Denmark, I feel will be a tough test. And although Cymru will put up a good fight, it will end in defeat. So let's wrap those chips up to keep them warm. And next into the fryer tonight, it's Burton Albion.
I knew about this game.
Oh, excellent. An early kick-off back at the Stoke Kairas as Wrexham welcome Burton Albion with 6 games to go. Wrexham and Burton Albion last met at the beginning of December at the Pirelli Stadium, with Wrexham coming away with a 1-0 win on a stinky weather day. Elliot Lee took a corner that floated above the keeper, behind him and back into the net. Burton had an interim coach in place for that game, but appointed Gary Bowyer as head coach not long after. Since then, Burton have really fought in the bottom 4, now sitting in a position just on the edge of the relegation zone in 21st, with 9 wins, 12 draws and 18 losses, a goal difference of -15 and 39 points, 3 points from safety, and with a game in hand over Bristol Rovers, who are in 20th. The last 5 results: a 2-0 loss away at Wycombe, a 2-1 loss at home to Bolton Wanderers, a 2-0 win away at Shrewsbury Town, a 2-1 loss at Stockport County, and a 2-1 win at home to Leyton Orient. In January, Burton signed ex-Wrexham players James Jones, Anthony Ford, and Jon Daddy Bodvarsson. And the chips are done. Oh, Jamie, we're getting to the real pointy end of the season. Wrexham at home, but Burton have something they can really play for in this game. Can you see this game being an absolute bog fight of a tussle?
It's got the potential to be anything, hasn't it? A few weeks ago, there were a lot of people, and I'll probably have to be honest and say I got suckered into it as well, of thinking, right, once we get over these fixtures that we had in like February and March or whatever it was, where we had that run of 6 or 7 really tricky games, and we came through it pretty well, and then there was a lot of talk of, oh yeah, but our run-in's easier than Wycombe's. And I suppose on paper it is, but the game's not played on paper, is it? And at this point of the season, things, think when things really matter, it has a really strange effect on teams. Look at Cambridge as an example. Let's be honest. I think mathematically they can be relegated this weekend. I'm sure I heard that today. I could be wrong.
I believe so, because I think they're like 11 or 12 points adrift. So I think they're close, I think.
But if you look at how they played against us on Tuesday, they were still going for an out. Whether that was Wrexham thing or what, I don't know. I mean, this again, Burton on paper, you look at where they are in the league, you look at their results, and you look at our home record overall. I know it's not been as prolific in the last few months as maybe it has been in the last couple of years, but still we're strong at home. Our position in the league, this is a game that everyone looking at this, we will be on everybody's accas as a home win for this one. And probably quite rightly so. However, there are things with this game that you have to consider. One is the fact that Burton are fighting for their lives, and are in quite a good position. Their win last Tuesday to Leyton Orient is a big win for them. Like you say, the fact that they've got a game in hand over Bristol, they will be really up for this. You then add into the mix that this is, basically Wrexham playing Wrexham Mark II. There's going to be, you've got, the Fleur element, you've got the three players that you mentioned. Now, I looked on Tuesday and none of those three players were involved on Tuesday night. So whether they're injured, I don't know. But, that's obviously a factor as well. I would love to be confident and say that we'll put them to the sword. And I hope that's what we see. But I know this Wrexham team too well, and I'm not brave enough to predict that. I am going to go with a Wrexham win. Spoiler. I am going to go with a Wrexham win, but as much as I would love to think it's going to be a 3 or 4-0, and at this time of the season, that would be brilliant. It doesn't matter at this stage. Any kind of win is what we need. We've got to win these 3 home games. Got 3 home games left. We've got to win the 3 home games as a bare minimum. And against teams, 2 of those 3 home games are against Burton and Bristol Rovers. Those are 2 games we have to win. We as much as I said before about there'll be twists and turns. If we've got any hope of getting this second spot, those are 2 of the 6 games. We have to win those 2 games. So it starts on Saturday.
Daz, Burton's results have been erratic, and they've both lost to Stockport and to Wycombe in the last few weeks. How important is it that Wrexham match those results in order to keep automatic promotion hopes alive, considering that both Stockport and Wycombe are rivals for that second place?
Yeah, no, I was just looking at some of the results for Burton. I mean, it's like 2-1, 2-1, 2-0, 2-1. I mean, it's just very close games. It senses a team that are not as poor as the results suggest. Like Jamie's saying, it's just one that we can't absolutely be convinced that it's going to go the obvious way. That their league position doesn't reflect their current form. So I think you've got to sort of go into the game thinking this is a must-win game. Yes. I think that Wycombe have also got plenty of you've got to let them play their games out. You can't influence those, and I think that's classic sort of title race mentality. You can I use yours, Jamie? You've just got to play what's in front of you. Thank you.
House.
And that's all that you can do. You can't play Wycombe's games in any other way. So just play. But I just think though, even the most recent games though, where the draw and stuff, there was Wrexham was still playing well. It still feels like they've got the quality. They can win. They can be competitive. They can be in any game up until it's just not to give away silly goals, penalty decisions, and go against whatever. It's there's a lot to play for, but I still think Wrexham have the better quality.
So, time for the salt, vinegar and sauce koch. Jamie, what's your score prediction for Wrexham versus Burton Albion?
Now, I don't know whether to stick with what I wrote down or I've just had an epiphany.
Well, make sure you get a cloth.
This could be make or break for the Chip Shot League, this could.
Yeah, good. You're right. And you two were slagging it off, saying it was rubbish. And look how exciting it is. It's more exciting than the Premiership. Yes.
Hmm.
Well, not for you, obviously.
I'm having a lovely time in the Premiership, thank you.
Exactly. Great result last night for the Reds over the Blues.
Absolutely.
4-0 Wrexham win.
Whoa, that's mental. Daz, what's your score prediction for Wrexham versus Burton Albion?
4.
That's my epiphany. I've been saying for, well, I've said it a few times this season.
And been wrong every time.
I'm being wrong every time. But look, the gap is very, very small now in this league. We're due a big win at home. We're due one, and I've just had this epiphany that I could be wrong. I'm not going to say what my.
I'd rather it be versus Charlton, to be honest, than Burton. I'd rather be Charlton.
Oh yeah, but realistically, you're not going to expect. You surely to Christ, you're not going to expect a 4-0 win against Charlton. I don't know. I've just had this. Like I say, I'm not going to tell you what I actually wrote down, but I've just had this little epiphany as we've been talking. I think, yeah.
So, Daz, what's your score prediction for Wrexham versus Burton Albion?
I'm so tempted to do my usual 1-0, and just so because it's so polar opposite to the 4-0. But I had written 2-0, so I'm going to go 2-0 to Wrexham.
And I'm predicting Wrexham 2, Burton Albion 1. I was fairly confident before the Cambridge game, as I thought Wrexham had turned the corner. But Cambridge fell back into our usual routine, seemingly inability to kill off sides, and then just got really grumpy and miserable and sulky, and it hasn't gone away.
That's not like you.
No, I know. I think we'll do it versus Burton, but I think it will be a really tough watch, and I'm glad I'm there and not watching it on the telly, or my shoe might be going through the telly. So let's wrap those chips up to keep them warm. And next into the fryer, it's Cardiff City Women. Wrexham Women welcome the champions to the Rock, although it's not the Rock we found out tonight. It's actually been played in Denbigh due to the fact is that there are electrical problems at the Rock, so they can't play it there. So the match has been switched to Denbigh. It is the penultimate game of this year's Gennaro Adrian Premier. Cardiff secured the title last week, and Wrexham losing enabled Briton Ferry to secure that second place. This will be a rehearsal for the FA Cup final later this month, with Wrexham beating Cardiff in their last meeting 2-1. And the chips are done. Daz, Wrexham on the back of their first loss in 8. Cardiff probably still hungover from celebrating clinching the league. Do you think Wrexham can get back to winning ways?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, this, to predict, because I do think Wrexham are going to feel really, really sore about the way that they've conceded this league position that they had. The chance of, I know it's no trophy, there's nothing to play for Europe or anything like that, but it would have been some sort of bragging rights for second. So I think they'll be disappointed. Equally, Cardiff now, nothing. They've won the title, so they've. What do they want to play out for the rest of the season? Is it places in the cup final? Will they be protecting some of their stronger players, making sure that there's no risks, or are they going to try something different to see some of the fringe players to see if there's a place for them in the cup final? It's a really difficult one, because whereas if you knew what the result needed to be, as in you had to win, I think that would have been a lot easier to predict. I do think Cardiff were unusually poor that last game against Wrexham. I think that 2-1 win is a bit of a skew to the form books, really. But Cardiff weren't as dominant. There was a period in the league season where they weren't as dominant, but they've shown they've still got the quality. So I still think Cardiff will be a tough opponent and hard to beat, even with a second string, because I just don't think Wrexham have got the depth in their team. And to be honest, I'm not entirely sure if Wrexham know who I just think their strengths are through a particular squad at the moment, particular formation of the team, and if they deviate too much from that, then they weaken themselves considerably. Whereas I think Cardiff just got a little bit more depth. So even if they did rest players, I still think Cardiff are likely to still get the result they want.
Jamie, Wrexham did look a shadow of the side that has been in phase 2 when they played against Briton Ferry. I mean, will Cardiff use this as a kind of a bit of an experiment bed for that cup final to see what might work and what might not against the Wrexham side that is already a little bit down in the dumps?
Even though there's naff all riding on this game, it's quite a fascinating game, really, just purely because of, like you say, the final to come. My dad's just said, will Cardiff use it to keep some of their key players rested for that final and therefore play a weakened team, for want of a better phrase? Will they want to make a statement? Will they want to make a statement of coming to Wrexham? Okay, it's not at the Rock, but coming to away to Wrexham and putting in a big performance and hopefully get a big win from their perspective to put down a marker for the final to kind of mentally get in Wrexham's head. I don't know. From Wrexham's point of view, like Daz has said, okay, second has gone. I personally was of the opinion of, as much as second would have been great, I think wherever they finish now, just getting in that top four after the start of the season they had is a phenomenal achievement. But from Wrexham's point of view, again, how do they approach it? Like Daz said, I don't think we've got the depth of squad to be able to rotate too much. So it's going to be pretty much the same team and the same way of playing. They won't want to lose it. They won't want to lose it all, but they won't want to lose it heavily with, like I say, with one eye on that final. So as much as there's nothing necessarily riding on it, it is quite a fascinating game. And a tough one to kind of predict, really, because without knowing how the two teams are going to approach it, it's just a difficult one.
So time for the salt, vinegar and sauce score. Daz, what's your score prediction for Wrexham Women versus Cardiff City Women?
I think I keep going around in circles whether or not Wrexham are, they're capable of scoring against anybody. They've got the quality. Suckley and Idden are absolutely on fire. Jones on the wing and stuff like that. It's just there will always be chances. I'd written 2-0 originally to Cardiff. I'm going to change that to 2-1 to Cardiff.
Jamie, what's your score prediction for Wrexham Women versus Cardiff City Women?
I'm going for a 3-2 Cardiff win.
And I'm predicting Wrexham Women 1, Cardiff City Women 2. Wrexham have done amazing to get to where they are, but they looked really tired last week. Add their hard work finally catching up with them. I mean, is it really catching up with them? And with that team full of confidence that they're going to be playing against, having won the league, I fear a Cardiff win is on the cards. So let's wrap those chips up to keep them warm. And lastly to the fry tonight, it's Sweden Women. A second Nations League game for Cymru Women as they travel to Gothenburg and the Gamla Ullevi Stadium to take on Sweden on Tuesday, the 8th of April, kick-off 6 p.m. BST. Cymru drew 1-1 in their last game at the Stoke Kairas, and Sweden play Italy at home 4 days before when Cymru are playing Denmark. And the chips are done. Daz, Cymru taking on Sweden. Can they replicate the fantastic performance at the Stoke Kairas last month?
I think they can be competitive. I think they can be spirited. Whether or not they'll be able to repeat a positive result, because as much as 1-1 doesn't sound very positive, it was in the circumstances. The nature of how they got it as well was a pen. Sweden aren't going to give away goals that easily. I think it's going to be a really, really tough game. And going to Gothenburg is not the easiest of places. I can't see the local crowd letting them off the hook, particularly in terms of welcome to Sweden. It's going to be really, really, really tough game. At the risk of sounding, I'm trying to be pragmatic about the fact that they're doing so well. They're getting the opportunities to play in this top flight in the Group A, but there just still feels there's a gap between the way that Cymru are playing and the absolute elite. And I do consider Sweden to have been historically one of that elite. Now, whether or not they are the team of old, but they've just always been proving themselves to be in the major tournaments, and that unnerves me a bit. And I just think this is just likely to be, again, we've got the home game first, then away second, and it's a tough place to go to. So all that you play Denmark, probably a very, very tough game there, and then you've got to go all the way to an intimidating environment. I just find it too difficult to believe that we can do the same as last time. So I think they could be spirited, though. I don't think they'll roll over, and I don't think they'll be completely, they won't won't wipe the floor with them, but I just find it, again, a big ask for them to get a result.
So time for the salt vinegar and sauce Koch. Jamie, what's your score prediction for Sweden Women versus Cymru Women? Did you know about this game?
What do you mean? How dare you? How dare you?
We're shaking our heads for people who are listening on the
Did I know about this game?
And now Jamie's shaking his head, so yeah.
No, I'm just, to be fair, I am well aware of Sweden and their credentials.
I wouldn't mind, but at the end of every time we record the pod, I tell you what we're doing next week, so you know what's coming.
Watch my lips very carefully. I don't listen to you.
Oh, well, some things never change.
I'm going to say 3-1 to Sweden. I'm going to give Wales the benefit of the doubt they can get a goal. 3-1 Sweden.
That was your score prediction for Sweden Women versus Cymru Women.
Same margin, but I've gone for 2-0.
And I'm predicting Sweden Women 3, Cymru Women 1. Going away to such a strong side, I feel will be a very tough challenge. Sweden are unbeaten at home in a year, if you look at the figures, and will really push the Cymru defence. I think it'll be defeat number 3 for Cymru. So let's wrap those chips up to keep them warm. And we'll be reviewing these games in next week's pod.
Come and see the rest with me, and you will swear that you have seen a vision. We don't just know they feel when they're beaten by the field. We're off to the second division.
As we say goodbye to Willow, Batman Forever, and Top Gun actor Val Kilmer, who's passed away this week at 65, it's good night, Iceman, and fly high. You've been listening to the Eat More Chips podcast, the official podcast for one of the greatest Welsh supporters flags in the universe. If you have enjoyed listening to us, please support the podcast, like, subscribe, and leave a comment. You can find us on audio at Spotify, Apple, and YouTube Music. You can also go into our social media, such as X, Threads, and Blue Sky at Tweet More Chips, or drop us an email, eatmorechipspodcast, or one word, at gmail.com. Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, Eat More Chips Podcast, and on Facebook, search for the Eat More Chips Podcast group. You leave us a review of the platform you're listening on, lets you do so. And if you have anything particularly you'd like us to discuss, please feel free to drop us a line. Our thanks as always to the North Wales folk band The Harvesters and their 1978 Wrexham football song. Don't forget to like and comment last week's episode 100 on YouTube to enter the draw for this, and I didn't have it ready, for this signed Phoebe Davis shirt. That will be closing at 23:59 BST on Friday, April the 4th, and the draw will be made in next week's pod.
Phoebe Davis? You told me it was Philly Davis's shirt.
No, it's Phoebe Davis. Don't tip me. Don't tip me. Actor Michael Sheen will play Owain Glyndŵr, announced this week, the last true Prince of Wales. And I believe my two colleagues have managed to secure parts in the production as well. One being a stunt codpiece, and the other being his favourite helmet. So, thank you, Daz.
I'm confused by that. I was just about to say I hope Val Kilmer is skeet surfing in the sky now. Nick, Top Secret is my always number one.
You know what? I put a post on social media this week about it because they played a clip and I'd forgotten how funny that he is in that film and how funny that film is. The Zucker brothers at their very best.
No, that's how I will remember him. So yeah. Goodbye. Yes, I've lost my train of thought, but you asked me a question. No, you didn't. You were just saying goodbye. Goodbye, everybody.
And thank you, Jamie. You were the helmet.
My pleasure.
What?
I was just saying, you've called me far worse. I'll take that one on the chin.
I've been Welsh Techie, and I'll be appearing in the production as Conway Castle, which is nice. So, until next time, come on, Cymru, and come on the town.